Here we are back on the sample vulnerable application. And earlier on, we were using the cylinder layout page in order to exploit both error-based and union-based injection. So that was one attack vector. I want to show you another attack vector though, and I'm going to go over to the leaderboard this time. And what we'll see on the leaderboard is that the results are sorted. And at the moment, they're sorted by the rank. But we can now expand this little sort results panel, and we can sort by another attribute. So for example, power. And when we sort by power, clearly it's the most powerful cars up the top. Bugatti Veyron rates number 1. What I'm interested in though is the URL. And if we have a look up here, we can see a couple of different parameters. We can see order by equals power in kW for kilowatts. And we can see an ASC equals false. Now it's pretty easy to imply what's going on here. The order by query string is telling us which column to order by, and ASC is the syntax that we'd normally use for ascending versus descending. So give us the power and give us the most powerful supercar first. Now, as we saw when we were looking at error-based injection earlier on, one of the first things we want to do when probing for a SQL injection risk is see how these parameters handle out-of-bound values. So here's what I mean by that. Let's take this power kW value and we'll just change that to say power kW 2. Let's run that. And here we see an error. And in fact, here we also see what we didn't see before, which is an internal error. So this is not an exception from the SQL server that then bubbles up in that yellow screen of death, as they call it, from ASP.NET and tells us everything about the internal exception. What we instead have here is a nice curated error. And really all it says is that something has gone wrong. Doesn't tell us what went wrong. It's a generic error message. Now what's actually happening here is that power kW is actually being concatenated into a SQL query. And because it's an order by clause, we can speculate about where that might be. So for example, it is probably something like select star from supercar, order by, and then we have the column name, power kW, and then inevitably after that we would have the word descending, or abbreviated to DESC, simply because ascending is set to false. Now there are two important things to note about this as they relate to SQL injection. So number one is that if we have injection at the order by clause, that is a very specific place in the statement which happens after other things. So for example, the where clause is done with. We're past that. We can no longer inject into there, and we can no longer apply an approach like a tautology, which we looked at earlier on, because where is done. So we have to find a way of injecting into the order by component of the query. The other thing that this has actually done, and this is really the heart of blind SQL injection, is it has told us something important. It's told us that there is not a column called power kW2. Now that may sound kind of obvious, but it is actually a really, really important concept because this is the Boolean part of the attack. Ask a question, get a yes or no answer. The question we implicitly asked on the previous screen was, is there a column called power kW? Yes, there is because the page loaded and it ordered by power kW. The question we're asking here is there a column called power kW2? No, there is not, and consequently we have an error. So that's a very quick understanding of what a blind SQL injection attack entails. Let's now move on and start probing away at Boolean-based injection by using this attack vector that we see right here.